The possibility of an off-the-charts Roman Reigns versus heel John Cena match isn't just fantasy booking, it's the strategic nuclear option that could single-handedly resurrect WWE's cultural dominance. But here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just about two superstars colliding. This is about witnessing the complete destruction of everything we thought we knew about WWE's hierarchy. And I'm about to show you exactly why this match would create shockwaves that extend far beyond the wrestling world. Think about it. When was the last time WWE had a feud that made non-wrestling fans stop scrolling and pay attention? When was the last time a storyline felt so unpredictable that even the most cynical fans couldn't predict the outcome? That's exactly what we're looking at here. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this single match could determine WWE's trajectory for the next decade. John Cena's transformation from the untouchable face of WWE into a full-fledged villain isn't just a character change, it's a psychological masterpiece that taps into our deepest fears about heroes falling from grace. For over 15 years, WWE fans begged, pleaded, and demanded that Cena turn heel. Their calls went unanswered until recently, and now that it's happened, the impact is more devastating than anyone could have imagined. But here's the genius of this heel turn that most people are missing. This isn't your typical good guy goes bad storyline. This is a man who spent decades being told he was the moral compass of WWE, only to realize that his unwavering loyalty was being exploited. Cena's heel persona represents something far more sinister, a mentor who's been betrayed by the system he helped build, now using every lesson he learned to tear it down from the inside. The psychological layers run deeper than surface-level trash talk. When Cena delivers promos now, there's a chilling authenticity because he's drawing from real frustration. He's not playing a character. He's channeling genuine resentment about being typecast, about having his versatility questioned, about watching newer stars receive opportunities he had to fight for. This creates an uncomfortable viewing experience because the audience can sense the blurred lines between John Cena the performer and John Cena the person. What makes this transformation even more compelling is how it subverts our expectations of redemption arcs. We're conditioned to believe that heroes who fall will eventually find their way back to the light. But Cena's heel turn feels permanent, irreversible, like watching someone burn bridges they can never rebuild. He's not just embracing darkness, he's weaponizing his knowledge of what makes fans tick, using their own emotions against them. The tactical brilliance of his heel work lies in how he's deconstructing his own legacy. Every never give up chant becomes a mockery. Every you can't see me gesture becomes a threat. He's taking the very symbols that defined his heroic persona and corrupting them into instruments of psychological warfare. This isn't just character development, it's character assassination of his former self. And here's the kicker, Cena's Hollywood success adds another layer of authenticity to his heel persona. He can legitimately claim that he's outgrown WWE, that he's achieved mainstream success while his former colleagues remain trapped in the wrestling bubble. This real-world context makes his arrogance feel earned rather than manufactured, creating a villain who's impossible to dismiss as simply playing a role. The most unsettling aspect of Cena's heel turn is how it forces fans to confront their own relationship with nostalgia. Many viewers who once booed him now find themselves missing the security of his heroic presence. It's like watching your childhood hero reveal they were never who you thought they were, and that psychological discomfort is exactly what makes this character work so brilliantly. Roman Reigns' current position as the tribal chief presents a fascinating paradox that most fans haven't fully grasped yet. While he appears to be at the absolute peak of his power, controlling WWE's landscape with an iron fist, the reality is that he's never been more vulnerable. And here's why that vulnerability makes him the perfect opponent for a heel John Cena. For the first time in years, Reigns might actually need the audience's support. Think about the psychology of Reigns' character evolution. He spent years being force-fed to audiences as the chosen one, generating nuclear heat from fans who rejected WWE's corporate decision-making. But his transformation into the tribal chief was brilliant because it acknowledged that resentment and weaponized it. He became the villain fans always claimed he was, and paradoxically, this made him more compelling than he'd ever been as a babyface. However, there's a critical flaw in Reigns' current position that creates the perfect storm for this feud. His dominance has been built on fear, manipulation, and the support of his bloodline faction. But what happens when that foundation starts cracking? We've already seen hints of dissension within the group, moments where his cousins question his decisions, instances where his control seems less absolute than before. This isn't just storytelling, it's the natural evolution of any authoritarian regime. The genius of positioning Reigns against heel Cena is that it forces him into uncharted territory. For years, Reigns has thrived on being the calculating mastermind, always 3 steps ahead of his opponents. But Cena represents something different, a veteran who knows every trick in the book, someone who helped write the playbook that Reigns has been following. Suddenly, the tribal chief finds himself facing an opponent who can match his psychological warfare and exceed his political maneuvering. What makes this dynamic even more compelling is how it taps into Reigns' deepest insecurities. Despite his success, there's always been a lingering question about his legitimacy, whispers that he was handed opportunities rather than earning them. Cena, as a heel, would ruthlessly exploit these insecurities, forcing Reigns to defend not just his current position but his entire career trajectory. The vulnerability becomes even more pronounced when you consider the audience's relationship with both characters. Reigns has spent years demanding acknowledgement, insisting that fans recognize his superiority. But against Cena, that demand takes on new meaning. Instead of arrogantly demanding respect, he'd be desperately seeking validation, trying to prove that he deserves to stand alongside WWE's greatest champions. This shift in dynamic creates unprecedented storytelling opportunities. Imagine Reigns, for the first time in years, showing genuine emotion beyond cold calculation. Picture him having to rely on the very fans he's spent years dismissing, needing their support to overcome an opponent who represents everything he's tried to surpass. The role reversal would be complete, the man who built his empire on rejecting fan approval suddenly finding himself dependent on it. The cracks in Reigns' armor aren't just character flaws, they're the foundation for the most compelling character development WWE could offer. This feud wouldn't just be about who wins or loses, it would be about whether the tribal chief can evolve beyond the limitations of his own success. The generational warfare aspect of this feud represents something far more significant than a simple veteran versus rising star narrative. This is a collision between 2 distinct eras of WWE, each representing fundamentally different philosophies about what it means to be the face of the company. And here's what makes this generational clash so compelling. Both men have legitimate claims to being the definitive WWE superstar of their respective eras. John Cena embodies the last remnant of WWE's ruthless aggression era, the final connection to a time when WWE was grittier, more unpredictable, and culturally relevant in ways that transcended wrestling. He successfully navigated the transition into the PG era, becoming the company's most reliable ambassador while maintaining his edge as a performer. Cena represents the old guard, someone who earned his position through years of grinding, who carried the company through multiple transitions, who proved his worth in an era where nothing was guaranteed. Roman Reigns, despite his years of experience, still represents WWE's modern approach to star-making. He's the product of careful corporate planning, strategic positioning, and systematic development. This isn't a criticism, it's simply a different methodology. Reigns represents WWE's evolution into a more calculated, business-focused entertainment entity where stars are developed through careful market research and demographic targeting. The fascinating tension emerges from how these different approaches have shaped their respective characters. Cena's heel persona can legitimately argue that he earned everything through blood, sweat, and tears, while Reigns was handed opportunities based on his look, his family connections, and his corporate appeal. This creates a narrative conflict that feels authentic because it's rooted in industry realities that fans understand intuitively. But here's where the generational war becomes truly compelling. Both approaches have been successful, which means neither man can completely dismiss the other's achievements. Cena can't deny that Reigns has delivered when given opportunities, and Reigns can't ignore that Cena's longevity speaks to genuine talent and work ethic. This mutual respect, buried beneath layers of animosity, creates dramatic tension that goes beyond simple good versus evil storytelling. The generational clash also reflects broader changes in how audiences consume entertainment. Cena's era was defined by appointment television, where fans gathered weekly to see what would happen next. Reigns' era exists in the streaming age, where content must compete with infinite alternatives for audience attention. These different entertainment landscapes have shaped how each man approaches their craft, creating contrasting styles that would clash beautifully in a prolonged feud. What makes this generational warfare even more intriguing is how it forces both characters to confront their own limitations. Cena must prove that his old-school approach can still succeed in the modern era, while Reigns must demonstrate that his corporate-backed success translates to genuine fan connection. Neither man can rely solely on their established strengths, they must evolve to overcome their opponent. The generational element also provides natural storytelling beats that could sustain a months-long feud. Each man could systematically dismantle the other's era, pointing out failures, missed opportunities, and cultural irrelevance. This wouldn't just be personal attacks, it would be a philosophical debate about WWE's identity, conducted through the most compelling medium possible, personal combat between two of the company's biggest stars. The unpredictability of a heel Cena versus Roman Reigns match represents something WWE hasn't offered in years, a main event where the outcome genuinely cannot be predicted, where both victory and defeat carry such massive consequences that either result would fundamentally alter WWE's landscape. This isn't hyperbole, this is the rare scenario where the stakes are so high that the match outcome becomes secondary to the sheer tension of not knowing what will happen. Consider the impossible position this match creates for WWE's booking team. John Cena, as a heel, cannot afford to lose clean because it would immediately undermine the credibility of his character transformation. His entire heel persona is built on the premise that he's smarter, more experienced, and more ruthless than everyone else. A decisive loss would shatter that illusion and render his heel turn meaningless. But here's the catch. Cena also can't win clean because it would completely destroy Roman Reigns' carefully constructed dominance. Roman Reigns faces an equally complex situation. His character has been built on the foundation of being nearly invincible, the final boss that other superstars must overcome to prove their worth. A loss to Cena would signal the definitive end of his reign of terror, but it would need to be handled with surgical precision to maintain his credibility for future storylines. However, a victory over heel Cena carries its own risks. It might feel anticlimactic if it comes too easily, or it might require such extreme measures that it damages his character's integrity. This creates a booking nightmare that's simultaneously a creative goldmine. WWE would be forced to craft a finish that serves both characters while advancing the overall narrative. Perhaps Cena wins through such underhanded tactics that it generates sympathy for Reigns. Maybe Reigns wins, but at such a personal cost that his victory feels pyrrhic. The possibilities are endless, and each potential outcome opens new storytelling avenues. The unpredictability extends beyond just the match result to encompass the entire feud structure. Traditional WWE feuds follow predictable patterns. Face overcomes adversity, heel gets comeuppance, status quo is restored. But this feud breaks that formula because there's no clear face or heel dynamic, no obvious moral center for audiences to rally behind. Fans would be forced to choose between two flawed characters, creating genuine investment in the outcome. What makes this unpredictability even more compelling is how it reflects real-world uncertainty. In an era where wrestling fans pride themselves on predicting outcomes, analyzing booking patterns, and spoiling surprises, this feud would represent a return to genuine surprise. Social media would explode with theories, predictions, and heated debates, creating the kind of organic buzz that money can't buy. The match's unpredictability also creates multiple potential climax moments throughout the feud. Every confrontation, every promo, every physical altercation could theoretically be the moment that tips the scales. This sustained tension would keep audiences engaged week after week, never knowing when the decisive moment might arrive. Perhaps most importantly, the unpredictable nature of this match would restore faith in WWE's ability to surprise its audience. In a landscape where fans often feel like they're watching predetermined outcomes play out, this feud would remind everyone why wrestling is most compelling when the outcome genuinely matters and genuinely cannot be predicted. The cultural impact potential of a heel John Cena versus Roman Reigns feud extends far beyond WWE's traditional audience, representing the company's best opportunity in years to recapture mainstream attention and establish wrestling as a legitimate cultural phenomenon rather than niche entertainment. This isn't just about creating a compelling wrestling storyline. This is about crafting a narrative so universally compelling that it transcends the boundaries of sports entertainment. Consider the unique positioning both men have in popular culture. John Cena has successfully transitioned into Hollywood, becoming a recognizable face in major blockbuster films and establishing himself as a legitimate crossover star. His appearances in the Fast and Furious franchise, The Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker have introduced him to audiences who may have never watched wrestling. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns has been steadily building his own entertainment profile, appearing in major films and television shows while maintaining his wrestling career. This crossover appeal creates an unprecedented opportunity for mainstream media coverage. Entertainment outlets that typically ignore wrestling would be forced to pay attention to a feud involving two actors they've covered in other contexts. Sports media would be drawn to the athletic competition and the generational clash narrative. Social media influencers and content creators would naturally gravitate toward the dramatic storytelling and unpredictable outcomes. The cultural impact would be amplified by the timing of such a feud. In an era where traditional entertainment is increasingly fragmented across multiple platforms and audiences are harder to capture, wrestling offers something unique: live, unscripted emotional investment. A Cena versus Reigns feud would provide the kind of appointment viewing that streaming services struggle to create, the water-cooler conversations that social media algorithms crave. But here's what makes this cultural moment even more significant. It would legitimize wrestling as sophisticated storytelling rather than lowbrow entertainment. The psychological complexity of both characters, the moral ambiguity of their conflict, and the real-world implications of their rivalry would elevate the entire medium. Critics who typically dismiss wrestling might find themselves analyzing the narrative techniques, the character development, and the cultural commentary embedded in the storyline. The international appeal cannot be understated. Both Cena and Reigns have global recognition that extends far beyond WWE's traditional markets. This feud could serve as the centerpiece for WWE's international expansion, providing a universally compelling narrative that transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. The themes of legacy, betrayal, and power are universal human experiences that resonate across all demographics. The merchandising and marketing opportunities would be unprecedented. This wouldn't just be about selling t-shirts and action figures. This would be about creating a cultural brand that extends into fashion, entertainment, and lifestyle products. The visual iconography of heel Cena versus the Tribal Chief could become as recognizable as any major entertainment property. Perhaps most importantly, this feud would remind the broader entertainment industry that wrestling, when done correctly, can compete with any form of storytelling for audience attention and emotional investment. It would re-establish WWE as a legitimate entertainment company rather than a niche sports organization, opening doors for future crossover opportunities and mainstream partnerships. The cultural impact would extend beyond the immediate feud, creating a template for how wrestling can remain relevant in an increasingly competitive entertainment landscape.